And for those of you who are early here, I did want to give a tip that I posted yesterday. A link yesterday. I posted this morning a federal agency spend wheel. It's a piggyback off of the live event we did yesterday. But in there, I put in many agencies in the spend that they have, so you can begin to put it in perspective. As I talk about choosing one agency, and in fact, it relates to today's live topic. As I talk about choosing one agency, it's really important to understand how big is their spend, right? Generally, it's how big is their spend overall. And then you go down, how big is their spend in IT? How big is their spend in cyber? And when you understand that, you can decide whether an agency is a good fit for you. I was talking with somebody today who's struggling to get where they want to be. And I said, my advice is always 3 million or 3 years in subcontracting before you go priming. But you still want to be able to know which agency you're going to pursue teaming partners from. And so this post I did today on LinkedIn, if you haven't seen it, go to my LinkedIn profile. You'll see it in there. You should be able to see it coming in. So we're going to get started here. Excuse me. I got a little cough. Sorry. It is what it is. But the content's going to be great. So maybe my cough will interfere a teeny bit, but the content will make up for it. Okay, let's get started. Hi, I'm Neil McDonald. I am the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. And we do these daily LinkedIn Lives as a way to teach you process and procedure tips for succeeding in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been helping people like you understand that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. And when you know the process, you can achieve the goals that you're trying to go after. And that leads us into today's topic that I have down, writing a 5-year strategic plan on one page for the federal market. And the reason I chose this, I thought it fit in with other videos I've been doing recently or trainings I've been doing recently along the lines of picking primary agencies. Well, when you're talking to your, when you're thinking about it yourself, or if you're a bigger company, when you're talking about it with your colleagues, how do you guys make sure you're all on the same page? That's what I want to talk about, is just this single piece of paper that basically is laying out your sales strategy, right? I'm not trying to get into the back office of the company. I'm not trying to get into your team necessarily and growing your company from the personnel and talent standpoint. But in here, it's a 5-year strategic wheel that I'm going to show you. And so let me go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to get off to the races with that. By the way, welcome to the people who are putting it in, and thanks for the good to go. That's very helpful to me. Okay, so this is a federal sales strategy wheel that I put together, and it assists with your strategic goals and what you're trying to do. And so I'm going to walk you through a scenario, filling it out, and how I have it filled out. And one of the things I'd like you to do is, as I'm doing it, don't just take this as an exercise to only be sitting there eating lunch or coffee if you're in California, and just watching it. Think about this as I go along, right? What would you put into the slots that I start filling in? The idea of this wheel as well is I can print it and put it on my wall, and individually as a contributor, whether I'm a small business owner or I'm a capture or BD person who's focusing on it. This could really even be for larger companies, billion-dollar companies, where you have a capture person or a business developer. It's like, are you seeing the bigger picture? So if you're in a larger company, let's say 10, 20 plus million, maybe instead of putting together a company strategic wheel, you're putting together a wheel that's related to your primary customer. So let's say DOD or DHS or something. Well, you would break it down. And so keep that in mind. Whatever I'm going to give you is this scenario, this example. If you have questions as we go along, put them into the chat. I'll get to them at the end. I'll try to save some time, excuse me, as we go through. By the way, if you know anybody who might be interested in laying out a 5-year strategy or even a 1-year strategy in a single paper, just tag them in the comments. Let them know that we're live and that they should join us. So in the strategy wheel, dead center, what I'm putting down is my objective. Now, the first thing I want to mention is the top left, you see it says 2022 to 2026. This is a 5-year wheel for me. And the reason is because when I advise businesses, I say set a 5-year goal. Your market pretty much should not change. You should just be getting more and more and more money from the exact same places. And that's why I always say, you know, when you look to any target agency you're going after, make sure they have the ability to give you 25, $50 million in revenue. That it's not unusual to be able to award that to you. Now, if you have no money, if you're $1 million, $2 million company, it's going to take you 5 or 10 years to get to that stage, right? But you should still be thinking that way. Can this agency be pursuing? And so in here, when I say it's a 5-year strategy, I mean, each year as we go forward, I would have a wheel, and the fiscal year or the calendar year here is just changing in the dollar amount. But this objective is $10 million in new sales, right? So that's what I'm trying to do, is say my goal is to get $10 million in new sales in 2022. Where am I going to get that money? And so really, before I get to who my customers are and that agency and where, I've got to think about, well, what am I selling? What am I selling to them out there? By having this services area listed out, I'll be able to come back to it over and over again and make sure when I'm talking to FEMA, for example, I'm always speaking to the service areas I want to sell. You can name it anything you want, but in this particular area, in this scenario, I'm trying to sell cyber services and cloud services. That's it. So I'm automatically saying it's not really going to be on the Oracle side, or it's not going to be on Salesforce. I'm not trying to do some other type of technology like network engineering or something in the back end data centers. But cyber, I can go down more specifically and say, I want to push zero trust. Zero trust is a buzzword out there. It's trending. It's, you know, the whole concept's been around forever, but people have latched onto this idea of a buzzword called zero trust. And when something like that happens, it's handy from a marketing standpoint to just jump on and shape your customer's understanding of what zero trust is to match what you sell. And so for me, I'm clarifying for my team and myself that, look, I want to sell cyber. I want to be known as a cyber company that has a specialty in zero trust. This doesn't mean I can't do anything else in cyber. I'm just saying we're going to go after this play. And the reason I choose it is because I know that I can go into almost any agency and there's a path for success for me. On the cloud side, I'm clarifying that I'm Amazon Web Services. I want to be vendor biased, not vendor agnostic. Especially if you're a small business under 10 million, there's nothing wrong with being vendor biased, meaning I'm working with Microsoft or Oracle or Amazon, because then you capitalize on that relationship. Amazon's huge. They're doing tons of revenue within the federal government. If you can get in there and be a service provider, or if I can get in there and be a service provider related to Amazon Web Services, then that's a good thing. By also clarifying these areas, these service areas I'm doing, and app modernization is modernizing legacy type applications into the cloud. In this case, I'm saying I can migrate them from legacy standalone apps into cloud native apps in Amazon Web Services. This is very handy for sales, obviously, like I'm telling you, but it's also handy for a company when you're looking at your strategy saying these are the service areas. That means we want to go get more business in these areas, which will allow us to give more experience to our employees, allowing them to develop their skills, to move up the ranks from a level 1 to a level 2, to move up into a senior subject matter expert that can be out there. We have this whole hiring and talent growth path that people can follow when I'm focused on what do I offer. So here in this wedge, and there's going to be 3 wedges that you can see in that light blue area. So the first wedge is talking about what do I sell? And what I sell are services in the cloud and cyberspace. So you can see that there. I want to pause for a second, just get you to think, what do you sell, right? Do you sell products? Do you sell services? Could you put down 2 words in the red, 2 things that describe it? I don't know, Amit, if you're on, but he's one that pops into my head, right? Data in one, or data analytics, whatever in one, and artificial intelligence, maybe AI, ML in another, right? He would be able to do that. And then he could go to the blue section and expand on that. So think to yourself, what could you put in here? Okay, that's what I offer. And as we move forward, how am I going to sell it? How am I going to get $10 million? That's what I want to know is, if I know clearly where I'm going to get the $10 million from, every every week I can measure my activity. Every month and quarter I can measure my progress towards that goal. And you don't change your plan. You execute on your plan. So there's 2 ways I'm going to get that $10 million. First is priming, and the second is subbing, right? And so when I look at the $10 million, I don't have a lot of priming experience yet. So I'm going to sit there and say, you know what? I think I'm going to go out and try to get my first couple of prime contracts. Maybe there's smaller contracts out there that are, a couple of $1 million a year at most. And so that's my priming target. And then on the bottom here, you see subcontracting. I plan on getting $7 million of the $10 million goal from subcontracting. Now, remember, adjust this to wherever you're at. If you're a brand new business, maybe you're saying, I'm going to get, actually, maybe you put 0 down for priming and you say, I'm going to get $100,000. I'm going to get $1 million from subcontracting. Don't make the goal too big. If you're in the services business and you've got experience, a 12-month goal of $1 million is not an unrealistic goal. It takes work. It takes you having things in place, but it's not an unrealistic goal. You have to make sure that, obviously the service areas are your strong area. Okay. So in this light blue area now, I'm saying how that $10 million goal is going to be broken down. And so as I move forward, I know that I need to bring in enough opportunities to prime stuff. And I need to have enough relationships with teaming partners, potential prime contractors, right? To achieve my subcontracting goal. So the next level down, I'm moving from the light blue to the next outer ring, which is the red one. And I'm going to sit there and begin to break down even further. How do I envision making this money? And so there's 4 categories here I'm going to be looking at. One is other DoD. And so in this case, I know I want to be in the Defense Department. So let me just play these out really quick for you. I know that in the Department of Defense, I think I'm going to be able to make some money with Department of Health. I'm really going to try to target them because I did subcontract with somebody last year, and I think I know them. Whatever, right? So I think I've got a chance at some money with DISA or with DHA, et cetera. And so for that sub-wedge, other DoD agencies, I'm planning on $1 million in there. And then the Air Force I've got presence in, and so I'm planning on another $1 million in there. And I just noticed my math, I screwed up. So let's just say I would bump up the Air Force to $2 million because I have a presence in there. I've been doing some work and I'm ready to go to the next level and try to prime. So the Air Force is an ideal thing. However you break it down, right? But for me, I know, remember, this is a 5-year wheel. I know that I want to stay in DoD. DoD is the biggest spender out there. I've got a facility clearance, I've got traction, or I've got DoD experience, and I know I can grow business in there by building relationships with other people who are DoD knowledgeable, et cetera. So I'm looking at the out year. So here you see that I've got the Navy and the Army, and they're listed at 0. And that's on purpose because 2022 and 2023, it's going to stay at 0. I have no interest in chasing the Navy and the Army right now. That's a opportunity cost that if I go after them, excuse me, I don't focus on the Air Force. I need to focus on the Air Force and the DISA or DHA for a couple of years and build that up. So 2023, if you looked at my wheel, it would probably say 5 million. Right now I'm priming $5 million, and that $5 million is coming from, again, DoD and Air Force. But I know in my 5-year strategy or my 5-year plan, I'm going to be going into Navy and I'm going to go into the Army. And you can see this because when I lay out my 5-year plan, I lay that out. Okay, so prime contract dollars, that's how I plan on breaking down the $3 million. For subcontracting, I plan on, and this is this is me. Sorry about this. Subcontracting, it's large primes and 8A firms are my target. You can decide what you want, but basically with subcontracting, you can only subcontract with 2 types of companies, a large or a small. That's all there is. And so for me, the large makes sense, right, to you? And there's a $7 million goal. So I'm saying I'm going to get $7 million from the larges through relationships I have. And then I'm going to get $3 million from smalls. What I put here, which is kind of unique for me, is I said, I want to specifically target 8A firms. It's important to me to do that because 8As have this ability to get direct awards. 8As just have a leg up on the ability to push opportunities. And I know that. And so I want to strategically go after 8A firms. It does not mean that I'm not going to work with anybody else. It just means strategically, the ones I'm going to pursue constantly and have a steady clip with them, it's going to be 8A firms, and I expect to get $3 million. So now you can see my $10 million is going to come from Subbing and priming broken up in a 70-30% split. And then you can see the agencies I'm going after. You can see the large primes as a group is 4 million and 8As are 3 million. So then as you move to the outer ring, I'm doing the same thing. Where am I getting more? And I want to pause 1 second. The reason I drive into it this way is because I'm into a wheel is because I don't need a written document that's multiple pages. I'm never going to read it. But if I have this wheel sitting there, I'll keep coming back. Okay, so let's drive into where is this coming from. When I look at other DoD agencies, and there's a lot of them, a lot of money in there, I'm looking at Scott Air Force Base because I might have a presence, or Transcom, which is a major command and a lot of spending. And then DLA and Transcom work together, so it all fits together for me. So there I'm saying, okay, that's what I'm looking for. If I look at Air Force, I'm in the cyber business, remember down here. Well, 16th Air Force Cyber out of Texas, they're where cyber is, right? They're the cyber command for the Air Force. And then as I look at Digital Directorate or Air Force Lifecycle Management Centers, or where any of the type of work I might do, it's all coming out of AFMC, right? And so the reason I put Air Force AMC is because when I look at Transcom and then I look at AMC, there's a relation. I'm doing work with AMC in Transcom because those guys support them. And so what I'm saying is I'm going to expand my AMC business in the Air Force outside of Transcom. So separate to Transcom, I'm going to try to grow AMC. Same thing with the Navy. When I look at the Navy and the Army, you know that I'm going to do cyber, right? So 10th Fleet and Army Cyber are the cyber commands. So now I'm tracking all of DoD cyber. I'm also on the information side, cloud, right? So NAVWAR is Naval Information Warfare Command. And so they're the lead IT buying command, basically, of the Navy. And so I'm going after them. And then NAVC is this huge buying command that I find that there's areas for me to fit in, and I've made a decision to go after it. Over on the Army side, you see I broke the commands down. And with them, I just kind of stick this way because that's more than enough on the Army for my 5-year plan. Imagine what I'm doing here with this priming is laying out where is my business development efforts going to be, right? I'm going to be doing business developments continuing at DLA or Transcom. And then I'm really going to be spending the next 2 years expanding my relationships and my presence and my understanding of Air Force cyber. That's not happening in a month, right? That's a continuous thing. And so between Air Force Cyber and AFMC, two huge separate commands, right? And this is just a subordinate command of one of a major command. But I'll take a couple of years to really dig in there. And I'll be looking for opportunities, looking for places to support. And so as I move out, it's the same thing. It'll take time to build a solid relationship with 10th Fleet when I start in year 3, with NAVWAR when I start in year 3. And so that's why I'm not trying to load this up. Sometimes we load it up with too many commands. And so when you think about this, in the red should be your primary agency. And basically I'm putting down a primary agency as DoD, and I'm sticking with the Air Force. And the only reason, by the way, I have multiple is because I'm operating as if I'm a $10+ million firm that has one person dedicated to the Air Force, one dedicated to the Navy, one dedicated to the Army. I am not a single person company under $1 million thinking I'm going to go after all this. So keep in mind, this expansion in the priming areas is my ability to hire people dedicated to business development and capture in those agencies or commands. All right, let's bring it down to subcontracting, the last part of this wheel. And in here, for the 8A firms, remember I said I'm going after 8As, but the reality is 8A firms are always double tagged, if you will. An 8A firm is a small business. So now I'm always going to have a small business and an 8A when I'm doing that. But now I'm strategically going to look for 8As, and I'll go for the bottom here. I'm going to look for 8A firms that are also an SDVO SB, a service disabled veteran-owned small business. I'm also going to look for a partnership that might be an 8A and a woman-owned firm. I'm going to look for a partnership that is an 8A and a hub zone firm. So now I am building relationships with companies that are hub zones and woman-owned, et cetera, but I'm having them double tagged across the board. Remember, this doesn't stop me from having one-off relationships with people, or somebody comes into the mix. I'm like, hey, it turns out you are a strategic relationship and you have none of these tags. That's fine. But when I'm planning, this is how I plan. The other thing is, because my prime contracts are all targeted to DoD, I want to find an 8A firm that's doing $5+ million a year that's in DoD. So I can go look and see that they've been doing business in DoD. And the last criteria I'll do is say, I want them on STARS 3. That's the new 10-year contract vehicle, or 10-year, whatever it is. But it's a $50 billion ceiling for an IT contract vehicle. A lot of what I want to sell could be pushed, set aside into 8As on that vehicle. I want to have a solid relationship where they trust me, I trust them, and we're able to go after work together. So that's that criteria I put down. And on the large primes, the last thing I'll show you here is I never go after more than 8. And the whole idea is 8's manageable. I can do every 2-week meetings with each one of these large primes and be able to manage the activity. So if I want to get to $4 million in new opportunities, I'm going to be subcontracting under these folks. And this live training is not about breaking down all the numbers I use in sales, like how many proposals do I need to write? How many opportunities at this stage in the capture process do I need? I'll do another whole week on that, I think. But in here, the idea is I'm looking at these folks and I either have relationships, or some of these guys I don't have relationships yet, but I'm like, you're solidly in the spaces I want to go. I need to get to know you. I need to start building a relationship and getting you to trust me, and for me to get to know you and your priorities and how I might be able to help, so that $4 million is nothing to these people. I mean, frankly, any one of them could give me $4 million and it's like crumbs off a table for them. Not that, largest are throwing dollars around, but my point is it's not a big deal. And so what I need to do is to have what they need and know who needs it and have a relationship with them. When you do that and put it in place, it moves forward. So these large primes, I've identified who I'm going to do business development on for largest. Just like I would go into NavWar and do business development in there, I'm doing business development in Booz Allen. What contract vehicles do you have? Who are your key leaders? SAIC, I don't know if they're on here, but I met their at one of the Air Force events. I met their head of cloud technology, which was awesome. If I actually was building this business, I could build that relationship. But I was talking with him. He'll come on a podcast with me and we could talk about cloud. Well, that's the start of a relationship. It's me understanding what are you looking for and how can we help? So anyways, this is the 5-year strategy wheel. The only thing that changes in the out years for me is the calendar year, the total objective, and how much is going to be prime and sub. By doing that, and I slap it up on the wall, I can see every single morning, there are my priorities. When I'm talking to somebody and they want to talk to me about something that's unrelated to what I do, I sit there and say, look, we don't do cabling. I appreciate that, but that's a different type of IT work. Actually, can I take a few minutes and explain to you what we do and where we're doing it? We do cloud, we do cyber, we're doing it here. Our focus is in DoD. If you want to hand me a subcontract over at FEMA, I'll take it. But I'm only doing business development in these particular areas. So I'm going to pause for a second, partly drink water, partly see if I missed anything. And I want to see if there's any questions. But if this is making sense to you, can you give it a thumbs up? Let me know this is making sense. And then this is a dynamic training. I know I went through this really fast, but if you have a question, throw it in the comments. Let me see them. And I'm going to stop sharing for a second and just come back to my camera so I can look at chat. Okay, so looking at some of the chat to see if we got questions in here. There you go, Kimberly, an 8A STARS 3 cyber business. If only I was talking with you. This is exactly what I meant by going out there. When you look at this, for those of you who are watching this video right now or the replay, when you think about it, right, do you have a strategy right now that you walk in every day and you remind yourself that this is what I'm working on? Could you just let me know in the comments? I have a strategy. I have something on my wall. Or do you find yourself constantly regrouping, trying to remind yourself, where are we focused? I'd especially be curious if any of you have a strategy that you're focusing on. And thank you. I appreciate it. See the comments coming in. So somebody asked about any suggestions on using LinkedIn to drill down on potential clients. I absolutely use LinkedIn. You can go into Sales Navigator, which is a paid part of LinkedIn. But before you even get to the paid part, you can do it right in the free version of LinkedIn. I do that in particular. Let's say cloud, right? I'm able to follow. There's this guy out there, Cloud Puckett, Paul Puckett, who's in charge of Army Cloud, and he's going to get ready to move on soon. But he interacts a lot with Navy Cloud and Air Force Cloud and all these other people. And so I engage them in that arena, and it allows me to begin to build this org chart, if you will, of DoD Cloud. I've done this before with DoD Cyber, so I can begin to figure out where people are at. People are very clear on LinkedIn. One thing to keep in mind about LinkedIn, I can't remember how many people are on LinkedIn. Let's say almost 1 billion, but only 20% of them are American. And if you put a balance in there, in the GovCon space, we represent only 5% of businesses. The rest are all commercial businesses, restaurant, et cetera. And so if you think about that, there's still, 1 to 5 million people in the GovCon space that are on there. And I rarely don't find people I'm looking for. So that was a great question there about LinkedIn, Crystal. Let me know if you want more into that. There you go. Kimberly said, we have a strategy, but not that there's always room. There is always room for improvement. Yeah, one of my favorite things about that strategy wheel is it's just a quick look. Am I doing today something on this wheel? I'm going to have my whole day. For those of you who watch my other video on planning your day out, the 4 quadrants, this is definitely quadrant 2. You look at it and you go, what am I doing today to move cloud forward, zero trust forward, et cetera. So I think we're good. I hope you found value in it. I found value in doing this for companies, and I definitely liked sharing it with you, because if more of us could have our focus, I believe more of us could achieve the success we're looking for. Remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you next time.